was in the Pacific Northwest, all the way down Highway 1 until my motorcycle broke down. I ran out of money. I didn't know anybody for 2,000 miles. And this woman came by and asked, do you need any help? And in perfect fashion, I said, no, I'm fine. The pattern was so ingrained. And so she left. And then I had this aha moment, like, well, wait a minute, I'm not fine. Is it okay not to be fine?
So you admit to the universe, hey, maybe I do need help. And then what happened?
I'm like dive bombing at the ground, pulling the wheel back as hard as I can. The warning siren's going off. The wings are shaking. And I'm way into the never exceed speed. It's in the red line. Because of that, the gravitational pull is pulling the blood out of my head towards my feet. And then consciousness starts to shrink. So now I'm just like pulling back with my might, watching myself dive straight towards these trees.
You're listening to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. I'm your host, Lori Seitz. This show exists because fine is a lie leaders tell themselves, and it costs them their people, their culture, and their impact. Every episode, a leader gets honest about what it really takes to lead with empathy, vulnerability, gratitude, and courage. I trust something in this conversation will stay with you. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Dr. Kevin Mays. Welcome to the show.
Why, thank you so much, Lori. I am super excited to be here.
We did a breathing exercise just right now before I hit record because Kevin had raced back to his office to get on this call through Grand Rapids traffic. And you know how when you're like rushing from one thing to the next, you just need to take a moment. Pause. It's like, okay, I'm grounded. I'm here.
I'm fine. Control the things you can control.
Yes. Well, we were laughing because we were talking about how when you're in a rush and under a deadline, how other drivers seem to just do the craziest, stupidest things. And fine is not among the four-letter words that we're using.
Not in my head 15 minutes ago. I'm like, what are you, some kind of knucklehead? Get out of the way. Oh, yeah. It was a rant in my head. It's funny how, when you break it all down, it comes down to expectations and what we want. It's craving and aversion that we fall into, wanting to not let you down, to not be late. And so feeling all this stuff comes up. I'm going to disappoint. Oh, now it drives my anxiety, and then it drives my foot, and I'm in the left lane swerving around people, giving them the finger out the window. Speed it up.
Yeah, I feel ya. I'm right there. I have refrained for the most part from giving people the finger anymore. Now I'm a little more grounded, but still in my head or in my car, what I'm saying to them is perhaps not as kind as I could be. I could use some work there, I admit.
Truth be told, I'm a Jeep driver. I give him two fingers,
I love it. Awesome. All right, Kevin, what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to who you've become? We're getting right into it. We're like, forget those crazy drivers.
Yes. So growing up in Michigan on the east side, it's the culture of the car companies, being engineer, working hard, and everything that goes with that, right? Big boys don't cry, never let them see you sweat, work hard, be cognitive. I learned to be hyper cognitive. And, when I was 3 years old and my brain was laying down 1 million neural connections a minute, I learned, as the youngest child too, I learned a bunch of stuff that has since I've been on the pathway to rewire some of that. So it's good. I'm good at being a pleaser. But what happens when I'm late for a meeting? It drives my own anxiety, right? I'm good at being, the youngest child was the one who would always, when there was tension in a room, I remember when I was a kid around the dinner table and my middle sister, right? The antagonist, was creating, there's some kind of drama around the dinner table. And I remember it was at a stage in my life where I had teeth falling out And I looked at her so nobody else could see me with a mouthful of mashed potatoes and just squeezed them between the gaps in my teeth. And she busted out laughing. And it's a way of kind of, I have a easy, natural way of moderating the tension, but also as the only boy, ultra responsible, hardworking, all of this stuff is the programming that I incorporated or adopted early on. Secret to my success and my Achilles heel, greatest weakness. The question is for me, it's like, who's in charge? Am I in charge of me, or are these patterns in charge of me?
Yeah, we will get more into that as we go on today. That is interesting. So you said, how many sisters do you have?
2 older sisters.
Okay. All right. And did they pick up the same values and beliefs as you, or were yours different because you're a boy?
Well, it's interesting. I love looking at birth order. And my family is textbook. I remember I was in northern Michigan at a little bookstore in Petoskey, and I had found this book. It was called The Birth Order Book. And I opened it and started reading, and I went right to the section on youngest child. And I'm going to paraphrase it.
Of course.
You can't fool me, youngest child. I know you skipped every other section and came right to this section, to start reading about yourself. And I remember looking over my older shoulder, took the book, bought it, and I made that a study. And an application, right, for my work with leadership and executives to understand that patterning. My oldest sister, different. She's family hero. She's even more responsible than everybody. Ultra traditional, lives closest to home, did everything by the book, and is the one who just does no wrong. Middle sister found her family away from the family, which is often what we'll find middle children will do. They have to find their identity relative to the firstborn, and the firstborn is they get the only thing the others don't get, the undivided attention from parents. Mm-hmm. And then that leadership role and all of that stuff. So the middle comes along and rebels against that role, and finds the family outside of the family and kind of moves the furthest away and is the most creative and unique. And then the youngest, who is clamoring for attention, and I'm still on a drive to get my attention needs met, right? And through humor and theatrics and what have you, just trying to, underneath it all, even though I'm cognitive and I've done my work, but it still plays in my personality. And when I'm not paying attention, I'll make a joke at the wrong time, or it's just interesting how complex all of these patterns we adopt are.
Yes, and none of them are necessarily wrong.
No.
It's just part of who you are.
The question, I go back to what I said earlier. So who's in charge of me? Do I own my mind, or does my mind own me? And the proof is, for me, when I experience things that validate my self-concept, I feel good. I feel a sensation that drives an emotion, and that drives behavior that drives me to do more of that thing, whether or not it's the thing that actually needs to happen in the situation.
How did you come to the understanding, or like, how did you get into studying this stuff?
It's interesting. I remember at one point, it's a whole lifetime of self-awareness. Once you open the door, you realize at first it's just a little room, and you're in like, oh, I notice this pattern. And the further you go into it, the more you realize that every belief, every value, every identity that you've constructed is just a fabricated thing. In the room of once you really step fully into self-awareness, you realize that nothing is real. I remember at one point when I was a kid, I felt like my life was going by. I was 18 years old. I said, I'm going to be 20 next calendar year. Mm-hmm. Sold my car and bought a motorcycle and drove across the country until I got up onto the Pacific. I was in the Pacific Northwest, all the way down Highway 1 until my motorcycle broke down. I ran out of money. I didn't know anybody for 2,000 miles. And I remember I was in my little pup tent on the side of the road outside of Carmel, California. And this woman came by and asked, do you need any help? And in perfect fashion, I said, no, I'm fine. Talk about ridiculous, right? But the pattern was so ingrained. And so she left. And then I had this aha moment, like, well, wait a minute. I'm not fine. Is it okay not to be fine? I always was the kid who always was happy-go-lucky and smiled and everything's fine. I didn't even know how not to be okay. I didn't know how to admit that to myself. So that was like a huge wake up, like this bolt of lightning. I'm like, oh, wait, it's okay to need help. We all want to be helpful, but nobody wants to be helped.
Right.
Instances like that help me recognize, not only for myself, but like the executives I work with now, that's the same thing. The thing that got them here is absolutely undermining what they're trying to create. And I see this nowhere more prevalent than with founders of businesses, that just hard fought wisdom. And then they start to scale this business. And then pretty soon I watch this business that is topping out because the owner, the founder, is in everything and not letting go, not trusting.
Not allowing help.
Absolutely right.
You had told me the rest of that story, and I want you to share it here as well. So I want to go back to that, but I want to also just throw in, like, when I'm hosting the gratitude dinners, one of the things that happens at the dinner is it's an exercise in learning how to receive. It's not a potluck. You don't bring anything unless you want a bottle of wine. You can't pour your own drink. So you have to ask somebody else to pour for you. It's a whole lesson in receiving, which, as you're just saying, people have a very hard time doing.
That's brilliant. How did you start doing that? What drove you?
Yeah, we can talk. That was based on another guest I had, Chris Shembra, back in 2022. He wrote a book called Gratitude and Pasta, and he kind of lays out a format for it. But
yes, great.
We can get to that later if we have time, but it is your story now. And I want to hear the rest of, so you admit to the universe, hey, maybe I do need help. And then what happened?
Well, let me back up a little bit and get you in. There's a story before the story.
Okay.
So growing up in Michigan, any job worth its salt as an engineer, working for the car companies, biggest company on planet Earth. Everything else, my dad told me, is a Mickey Mouse job. So that's it. You go to work for the car companies. That's a good living. That's what everybody that I knew was somehow connected with the car company. So I did what I was supposed to do. I got a job actually in high school designing paint spray booth systems for car companies. Brilliant. And they were going to pay for me to go to school, but I knew at that point I needed to do something a little different. So I studied aeronautical engineering. I was flying airplanes, and I thought, there's
smart.
There's what I want to do, and there's what I should do. There's like should and could. And the should is this framework, this constriction. How do you fit in? How do you belong? But underneath it is this raw, wild energy that wanted to express itself. So now here I am in aeronautical engineering, but I'm flying airplanes. And I remember being completely bored flying airplanes because an airplane, right? I used to liken it to a Chevette. If you remember Chevettes back in the day, a Chevette with wings.
Yes, I do.
Little rickety thing, the Cessna 152 or 172, little tiny thing, just buzzing along. And you're up there in the flight area practicing straight and level flight. Okay, I can do that for about 5 minutes till I want to poke myself in the eye with a fork. Well, I had an adventurous flight instructor who one day showed me some different maneuvers, stalls and spins. So you pull the wheel back until the airplane drops out of the air. And just before it does, you kick the wheel and it rolls over and you're flipping upside down. So now here I am, fast forward, and I'm 0.5 of an hour away from finalizing my private pilot license. And I just had time to burn. So I'm up in the flight area and I'm doing spins. I'm bored, so I pull the wheel back till the stall horn goes off, and I kick the rudder, and I'm upside down, flying upside down, weightless. Everything's floating around me in the cockpit. It was glorious. I did it 4 times in a row, and on the 5th time, I felt something in my stomach or my chest. It kind of clicked. I'm like, everything started to come up in that moment. It didn't quite, but I overcorrected at the same time coming out. So Cessnas are innately stable. If you take your hand off the wheel, it'll return to straight and level flight. Well, I overcorrected my 18-year-old genius self, and now I'm upside down. And the only way to come straight is all the way through, right? So now I'm like dive bombing at the ground, pulling the wheel back as hard as I can. The warning siren's going off. The wings are shaking because the Cessna is not designed to go that fast. And I'm way into the never exceed speed. It's in the red line. And because of that, the gravitational pull is pulling the blood out of my head towards my feet as I'm pulling this wheel back, and then consciousness starts to shrink. They call it graying out. So now I'm just like pulling back with my might, watching myself dive straight towards these trees. And I remember feeling this single bead of sweat drip down my neck as I skated just above the trees. And I had this aha moment. Kevin, this is not the career path for you. That's when I landed the plane, immediately sold my car, bought a motorcycle, and took off from Michigan across the country with a backpack.
Wow.
No destination, just go. And I drove. I remember in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, I got offered a job. But I said, nah, I'm going to go to the ocean, and just kept going. And as my motorcycle, when I finally hit Pacific Coast Highway 1, it started breaking down. And as it's breaking down, it was kind of cool because I felt like I was, with each piece that fell off the motorcycle, I felt like a piece of my identity was falling off. And when I did get to that little
interesting
cliff side south of Carmel, between Carmel and Big Sur, it was like there was nothing left of my identity. I thought, right? There was nothing to fall back on, nobody to blame, no excuses to make. But then when that woman asked me if I needed help and I said no, I realized I was still carrying some of that identity. I shouldn't need help. But the great thing is then an hour later, I'm still in exactly the same position on the side of the road, trying to figure out how to fix my bike. And who knows what I'm going to do then. And she pulled back off the side of the road. Now she had gone to Carmel from Big Sur to get her groceries, and she was headed back. But now she had a gentleman on a motorcycle following her. And they had some boards. They said, hey, we know you don't want help, but we're just going to put the motorcycle in the truck if you want, and we'll take you at least into town so you where everything's at. I said, brilliant. So we loaded the thing up in the back of the truck, and now I'm in the back of the truck holding the bike in the pickup truck. She's driving, guy in the motorcycle is following. We get all the way into Carmel. And I remember we're lowering the truck off, the bike off the back of the truck. And there's two boards they brought, one that I balanced the bike on and one that I walked on while they stood beside and helped. And I remember when I got that motorcycle off the back of the truck and started to go down the board, move it back it up, the truck lifted. The small board that I was on fell. And I just remember I dropped 2 feet to the ground. And this is the thing that was absolutely it changed my life. I watched people come out of the woodwork. I didn't know there was anybody around. And in that moment, people came, at least a dozen people came rushing towards the bike because they were watching this. Fortunately, I never dropped it, but I just remember that moment of magic that happened in that moment. And then this kind woman had $20. She bought a piece of coffee cake and a cup of coffee, gave those to me and the change. And now I had $17. So it was brilliant. And then everything from there was mundane, but I ended up in a house in the California hills with a hot tub over the ocean. It was the best summer of my life. And it was only because I went to the end of the road, right? I let go of everything I thought was possible and what I should do and what I could do and just stepped into the void. It was magic that will form how I make decisions the rest of my life. Because there was nothing to fall back on at one point. There's no room for fear. There's no room for blame. There's no room for shame. There's no room for excuses. None of that matters.
I mean, you were at that. Some people would say the bottom, there was no lower place to go. You were as low as you could be.
Broke down and at the end of the road. Mm-hmm. And that was the brilliant thing. I felt like in that moment of nothing, what I really lost was the constraint. The blinders had been ripped off. And I find this is what I struggle against now. And I see so many leaders struggle with it as well. It's like the curse of expertise, and the things become this constraint. And we don't see the options right in front of us because we're so used to seeing things a certain way. And our brain is actually oriented to not see certain things and to only see other things based on our thinking processes. When that's all stripped away, stuff starts to appear that was always there, but you never saw it.
Okay, 2 questions from this. One, how do you strip away that stuff so that you can see all of your options? And number 2, piece of that is that the reason why we can't see everything is because it could be overwhelming. And so how do you, when you strip away so that you can see what you haven't been able to see before, how do you not become overwhelmed? with all of the options now? Or is the universe, all the options are there, but the universe is only bringing you exactly what you need at that moment? Like that woman coming by, you had one option
Mhm.
at that point. You could take
Mhm.
it. Yeah. I
Well,
just
that's
asked
great.
you a whole bunch of
Well,
stuff
right.
there.
So, okay. I just had this book come out, right? Lead
Yep.
Yourself First.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody, a client of mine, wrote quoted something out of the book that I had written. I didn't remember that I wrote it. But he said, "You must sizzle in your own juice." Kevin Mays. I'm like, oh, I did say that, didn't I? And that for me is it. It's like the overwhelm. Like we're so good. Back to the hedonism. We move towards what feels good and away from what doesn't feel good. And when we put down our logic, it's wild. The power of presence is so underrated. We live in a world of conception, future looking, and then create emotion for ourselves, right? When you look forward, you create all of this stuff, whether it's excitement or fear or anxiety, or you look back and create guilt and regret and shame and anger. So we live in this place that's completely conditional based on not experiencing the true life that we have right now. Instead, we carry and fabricate this whole reality. And
Interesting.
for me, putting it down is that practice of learning how to just cultivate the mental muscle of presence, to be here, to be now, and to put down your dialogue, put down your narrative, put down all the conception, and just be in that empty space. And then from that platform of presence, self awareness starts to arise. And you can start to notice all the stuff going on that before used to drive and dictate how I move through the world. When you become aware of it, then it's a choice. But without awareness and without presence, there's no choice. You will keep doing the same thing you've always done. And what I see most people do is they blame the outside world then.
Okay, so it feels like it would be easy to do this, to let when you are at the end of the road.
Yeah.
But what if you're not at the end of the road, but you still don't necessarily like where you are? You want to be, you want to improve and have more financial stability or more love in your life or whatever it is, but you're not at the bottom of the barrel. How do you
do that? It's so interesting. So take fast forward now 20 some odd years. My wife and I decided, we were living in North Carolina. We wanted to move back into Michigan, where our extended families are, so we could raise our children, have our family. But we wanted to go to a different part of the state that we had never been, because the east side was depressed because GM went bankrupt. Hello. So we were going to move to the west side of the state, and we had never really spent any time there. So we literally pulled out a map and did some research, found a nice little town with a good school system and a great little Norman Rockwell downtown. Brilliant, very idyllic. And then over a weekend, we came up, bought a house, went back, sold the house, quit my job, and came up, and I started my own company. And my wife stayed home with the two kids. And part of me inside, I'm like, I know how this works, because I was flashing back to when I was on the shore. I'm like, now, if you step in with confidence, the universe will materialize. It takes me back one step further to this core truth. With your thoughts, you create the world. So for me, it's really important to have clarity of your vision and what it is you're creating. Who are you evolving to become?
Mm-hmm.
The more you have clarity of that, it's amazing how that reticular activating system, that internal filter we have, starts to move you that direction without conscious intention. The more you are committed and convicted. I told my wife when it happened, there's no plan B. This is the plan. This is the only plan, and this is what will happen. And lo and behold, guess what? It happened. It happened wonderfully. Now, though, that was 10 years ago. Along the way, we hit a plateau. I had a plateau. I'm like, okay, things are good. Comfort is the enemy of great. I'm like, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And this is the exact question I've had to face is now, how do you disrupt? How do you find that radical disruption in your own life without picking yourself up and dropping yourself somewhere new? I'm good at that. I've done it my whole life. But how do you do it and create that in your mental space with while still being in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting for me. One of the things I did, I wrote a book. I'm like, I got to do something different. I got to figure out how do I disrupt the patterns. But it's not as easy for me as it if I can geographically change myself. Like, how do you change yourself from within? The reality is, though, that's the only way you can change yourself.
Well, sure. So you're saying though that you could take on a challenge that forces you out of that comfort zone.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and something that you don't know how to do and just commit. I mean, it's like the old Cortez, you burn the boats. This is going one direction. I'm going to keep on this until it's done and watch what happens and start planting new seeds and nurturing them and just watch how things evolve. I think people greatly overestimate what they can do in a short period of time, but they underestimate what they can do over an extended period of time if they stay the course. It's evolution.
One of the people I love following, studying is Vishen Lakhiani. He's the founder of Mind Valley. I don't know if you're familiar with Mind Valley. It's a personal development, personal growth company. And one of the things he says is we underestimate how much we can accomplish in, I want to say this right, in 1 year. Wait, and we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we could accomplish in 3. Is that right?
That sounds right. It's kind of directionally the same thing I'm saying.
Yes, what you're saying, exactly.
Yeah, because for me, it's a point of evolution. You have to evolve. And here's the thing we're up against is those million neurons a minute that we laid down when we were 3 years old and 5 years old and 7 years old. Now that's driving us, and it becomes this system of constraint that we don't see. It allowed us to thrive back in the day, but now it's an absolute constraint about how we should be.
Yes. And I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday exactly about this, about how do you overcome that early programming that is no longer serving you. And I've been thinking about it ever since. And I'm like, it's almost like you have to brainwash yourself.
Well, I come back to the vision. It's no different than affirmation, right? With our thoughts, we create the world. So if you have something written down, like I have sticky notes that I tell myself all the time, you're putting in new input. But guess what? Over time, it starts to actually rewire your neurocircuitry. And then, so that's the starting point. Because if I have a self-concept and I perceive things that invalidate it, it starts to impact the way I feel, and the way I feel drives the way I behave. So if I let go of, and that's a lot of it for me, is like continual letting go and reprogramming. And how do you reprogram? This is the beautiful thing, that we have this conscious awareness that we can, but it takes time. It takes time.
And conscious awareness is not enough, because we have to reprogram at the unconscious level, which is where all those beliefs are buried. Half the time, we don't even know what they are. We see the results of them, but we don't know what they are. And that's where it needs to be rewired, because we can consciously think, I would like to make more money, or I would like to have, more freedom in my life.
Well, so for me, this is the point, right? Is that distinction I would like creates a separation from you in the actual step. So for me, the power and how I use my conscious awareness is to create the vision state as if it's alive now. Mm-hmm. I am creating more money for myself. I am creating a bigger impact in my community. I am a loving husband. Whatever that I think of them as I am statements, to say those again and again and again and again. And what happens over time, the subconscious starts to match it. It's hard in my mind I love it. I have words all over my house sometimes. I'll put note cards, just messages around. Mm-hmm. And you've seen the research with people who've done that with water, put words on water, and they take pictures of the molecules, and the negative words have a twisted kind of unhealthy looking water molecule, and the positive ideas have a positive molecule. I don't know how scientifically valid it all is, but I love the idea that it goes back to with our words, with our thoughts, we make the world. So changing your conscious intention in your thinking over time, over and over and over. It's no different than learning to play the piano.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't know anything out of the gate. You start practicing very slowly. For me, it's guitar, learning new chords over and over and over. Well, 6 weeks in, I don't think about it at all. My body just automatically has this new behavior. My subconscious mind is taking it over. And it's no different than training our minds.
That's what I mean by like kind of re-brainwashing yourself.
To realize that we get to decide. And I love it. Because brainwashing gets a bad rap.
Well, yeah, I know, because usually we associate it with somebody else doing it to us as if we're victims, which can happen. I mean, look at social media or the regular media, and how if you sit and marinate in that all the time, you will essentially become brainwashed. The circuitry in your brain is rewired based on what you're seeing and putting in there all the time. So you're saying you can consciously or intentionally do this for yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm going to push back against the brainwash notion, because I don't think it is brainwashing. I think it's aligning with what is true. Underneath all the constraint that we adopted is this brilliance. Underneath the constraint, we learned, use your inside voice. Big boys don't cry. Don't throw that in the house. Your feet are muddy. Whatever the thing is, we learn to live in a world of constraint. And when you start to peel that back, you realize underneath it all is this brilliant sanity that we all possess. It's intrinsic health. We all, underneath it all, have this wide open consciousness that we can ascend into. And when we do that, it's not brainwashing. I mean, that's just like realigning.
I like that.
With what is absolutely true and real. And so it's getting rid of the brainwashing in my mind and just coming back into the present.
I like that. Thank you for that clarification. That's fantastic.
Because we're not trying to replace one set of constraints with another, but let go of the one set of constraints and realize we ultimately have a much bigger potential. It's as big as the universe, our potential, if we can let go of the constraints and then choose what to do in any given moment.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. This 30 minutes has gone by so quickly. I know we could keep going for another 30, and we're not going to.
Yes. Oh.
However,
because we're just opening the door right now.
I know. I know. I'm gonna ask you one question first, and then we'll get to how somebody can continue a conversation with you. So, Dr. Kevin, what is the song that you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy, or maybe it helps you return to your innate wisdom?
Yes. I heard it yesterday and I thought, oh, this is the song, but now I have to go back to it because I could list any U2 song.
Okay.
And that would be brilliant. But throughout the history of my life, I keep coming back to that positive, strong messaging. And the one though lately, my kids have been listening to High Hopes, and I love that song as well. There's some really good ones out there. The one I heard, now I can't think of the one I heard yesterday.
Okay.
So it's going to hit me as soon as we end it. So I'm going to go with Light My Way by U2.
Cool. And when you think of that other song, just message me.
I will.
I'll throw it in the show notes.
Oh, nice. You know, it's funny. I find that music, it's so interesting how there's powerful messages in it. And sometimes music seems to just lay flat and it's bubblegum pop. And other times there's really profound stuff in it. And I always find myself moving towards and magnetized towards the stuff that really is that creative art form that leaves you questioning at a larger level and opens that door, aligns with my own aliveness. It's fantastic.
That's why I love asking this question, because music is so personal.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It reminds me, I think of you too. I think of a lot of Rumi's poetry that has always spoke to me. And anybody out listening, if you haven't checked out Rumi, you got to check out Rumi and then put on some U2 and you'll maybe find the presence within yourself.
Okay. Well, so if somebody does want to continue this fantastic conversation with you. Where is the best place for them to find you?
Oh, absolutely. Go to upgradeyourleadership.com. That's the easy one, upgradeyourleadership.com. We have all kinds of resources specifically I put together with this conversation in mind. There is a book that just made the bestseller list that is Lead Yourself First, available on Amazon. And you can also just go to Kevin@maysleadership.com and find me there.
I will put links to all of that in the show notes. Dr. Kevin Mays, thank you for joining me today on Fine is a Four-Letter Word.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, before we wrap, here are a few things from my conversation with Dr. Kevin Mays that I keep thinking about. Number 1, ask yourself who's running the show, you or the patterns you picked up as a kid. As the youngest child, Kevin learned to diffuse tension with humor. And now, decades later, he catches himself making a joke at the wrong moment in a boardroom. Those old programs can be the secret to your success and your biggest blind spot at the same time. Awareness is what gives you the choice. Number 2, it's okay to need help. As Kevin puts it, we all want to be helpful, but nobody wants to be helped. The moment he stopped saying, "I'm fine" on the side of that road and opened the door even slightly, help didn't just trickle in, it flooded in. Number 3, sometimes you have to step into the void. Kevin describes watching pieces of his identity fall off literally as parts of his motorcycle fell off on the PCH. By the time he reached that cliff between Carmel and Big Sur, he said there was nothing left. No one to blame, no excuses, no identity to protect. When you let go of who you think you're supposed to be, you start seeing options that were always there that you just couldn't see before. Number 4, with your thoughts, you create the world. Kevin talks about it like training for the piano, where you practice the chords slowly over and over until 6 weeks later, your hands just do it without thinking. The subconscious catches up to the conscious intention, but only if you phrase it as already true. Get clear on your vision, commit fully, burn the boats, and then watch how things start to line up around that decision. Yes, taking those steps is scary, not denying that. And you can do it scared. And number 5, comfort is the enemy of great. You don't have to move across the country like Kevin did to grow. In fact, he says that geographic disruption was actually easier for him than internal disruption. Dropping yourself in a new place forces change. Changing from within while staying put is the harder, rarer skill. So take on something you don't know how to do, stay the course, and let it change you from the inside. That's what we explored today. If something here landed for you, share this episode with someone who needs it. I'm Lori Seitz, and this is Fine is a Four-Letter Word. I'll see you next time.